One of them wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio. What's your name, sir?
Vic Guy.
What's the name of your company?
QuantumSecure.
I guessed that by the nice sign back there, QuantumSecure.
Oh, yeah.
What do you guys do?
Well, we do a lot of things. We help automate physical security operations.
Okay.
So what that really means is a lot of the security systems today, as well as security departments are feeling this pinch of doing a lot of data entry across multiple systems to do things like, simple things like onboarding, offboarding, badging, giving access, removing access, doing compliance reports. What we really are into is providing a policy engine that automates most of the security functions. The security folks can actually work on real security incidents, and we can take up a lot of the data entry, as well as provide a central user interface where everything can be done from.
Now, integration is the key.
Yeah.
Right? And HIT has been known for integration for a long time.
Right.
Because your cards, when I worked at Fox and Disney, your cards would work on our systems. Except you bought one of those, somebody had a proprietary system where it wouldn't work. But I always thought that was a good idea. So you guys have been into this for a long time. Are you fine? You belong to OnVIF, by the way?
Yeah, so we started this in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work with other manufacturers to integrate this stuff, make graphic user interfaces. Talk
Exactly.
about how the migration of the data works that's unique with this part of your business.
I think you mentioned a good point. Just like HID, their business is very vendor agnostic. I think their cards work on just about every system in the world.
Right.
Right. And they have multi-tech readers and multi-tech cards and all that. So we basically an overlay system that works with all brands of different access control systems, all brands of different HR system out there, IT systems out there. And really the goal is to automate as many operations based on the data.
Okay.
So integration is the key. Integration is sort of the means to the end. The end is really automation. Integration is the key to make sure all of that automation works together.
Now the automation, are we talking about writing queries that say, tell me if something happens, I want that data. I want to know if some guy comes into work at 3 in the morning when he's not supposed to come at work at 3 in the morning. Is that the automation part?
Yeah, so that's one part of the automation. The goal is to write exactly like you said, if this happens, then do that, in a very simplistic way, right? And if this and this and this happens, then go ahead and maybe turn somebody's badge off. So for example, if we have somebody show up 3 a.m. in the morning, no big deal. But if we have what we call indicators of compromise, if we have other known things about them, as in they came 3 a.m. in the morning, but they also printed a very restricted document, 400 pages of that.
Right.
Well, that triggers an alarm to say, okay, well that does not happen very often at 3 a.m. in the morning. People printing restricted documents, so there's something going on. And also, if the person, what we look for is, what are the other anomalistic things around not only physical security, but also in the IT landscape? Maybe how they are logging into their systems, how often they're trying to go onto internal networks where they don't have access to, just like people trying to shop their badges on different doors.
Exactly, it happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And what we're looking at is we look for these patterns, we store them, and then, like you said, 3 a.m. if something happens, so they're already on a high risk profile, but they also try to print a whole large of data set, restricted documents, then we could trigger an alarm, let the supervisor know, or ask the person, are you the one who's doing this at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Now, is this a new trend, the automation?
Yeah, I think that automation's been around for a very long time.
But what you're doing is real specific.
Yeah.
We did this at the studios. I dumped data from my phone switch. I'd write a query and say, tell me everybody that made phone calls at 3 in the morning, and I go, what are you doing here at 3 in the morning?
Right.
Because we didn't have the access control piece back then, right?
Right.
So, my challenge was always, the data's always been here, but it just sits there. And this sounds really fascinating that you're able to automate it to say, you know what, I'm going to get a phone call as the chief security officer at 3 in the morning because I want to know about this thing right here.
That's correct.
And the other ones, I'm going to delegate that down to a guard of my manager to handle. But something at a serious level, it has to be automated.
I think that you bring a good point that there is the automation piece, but there is also what data should go to whom, as in terms of whether it's CSO. Does the CSO really want to know that I tried my badge 4 times in a cafeteria? No. In that case, we actually tell the person that, are you trying to get into a cafeteria area, here's the request the link to automatically get access there.
Right.
Because it's a general automation thing. The key here, and one of the other point you mentioned is security has some very knowledgeable data that generally stays within security. It doesn't go outside security.
That's a great point. It doesn't go to HR, it doesn't go to the finance people, right.
Yeah, so one of the things, for example, we generate, we'll show you a demo here. We have a report for the CFO. Now CFO generally is interested in larger budgets and things. One of the biggest budgets they manage is facilities.
Right.
The cost of renting or leasing or owning a facility. So one of the CFO metrics is, well, how occupied we are. Are we 60% occupied? Are we 80% occupied? Are we 20% occupied? Well, the security department is the only department who actually knows how many people come to the building and how often.
That's true.
We've taken that data, massaged it in a way that's very relevant for CFO in terms of how many people we think. For example, we are building here, a real customer example, they have 600 people in San Francisco area. Well, the building is for 1,000 people. But realistic, so that's 60% occupied, CFO is feeling good about it. But when the security data comes in, it says the headcount occupancy and actual usage of the building is a lot lower. Now that meant unique number of times somebody actually came to that office once every month.
Right, yeah.
And that data is only with security. That data, then we leverage that and show to the CFO that actually it's really 40% used, occupied 60%.
Right.
And both of these metrics are saying, hey, we're not leasing any more space because we have about 60% unused space, even though it's occupied, but it's not being used.
That's brilliant. Because, and the security company, the security managers, that's not their bailiwick. That's not what they're focusing on.
But that's where the budget comes from.
That's right. That's right. The budget comes from that guy. So you want to make that guy happy, so it gives him more money. Although my trend was, if I saved money, that's great. They gave me less last year and thought I was a genius. So you got to spend it, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah,
but
every company is in the post-2008, 2009 timeframe. Every company is looking for making some very valuable investment.
Yeah.
Investment that either raise revenue or cut costs. So if there's a security department that's saying, I just need so many more man guarding hours, I need so many more CCTV hours. If you ask most CFO, they actually don't care about it anymore. They say, unless there is a specific threat risk, I really can't continue to sustain that kind of budget.
That's true, yeah.
Because my board's telling me, my investment in new products is telling me that I need to cut down operations budget. So security is going to get impacted, just like all the other departments. So the way to show them how security has the unique data like you talked about, nobody else has it, and it does not need to stay within security. We've also seen this same data actually not just being used by finance, but also we have a visitor management system. We're able to uniquely track how often companies, customers actually come to visit the customer sites.
oh, that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So the customer in our case have 400 sites around the world. How often? So they have a CRM system, because customer relationship management system.
But that's complicated.
Yeah.
The CRM, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's all gone to integration, right?
Right.
What typically they're tracking is how often people are clicking on a website and so forth. That's great. But how often they're actually meeting
That's the key.
in your office.
Because you can't close the deal unless you meet them.
Exactly.
That's why we're at a trade show.
And-
Because that's how it works.
And our goal is we're taking the detailed, very unique data from visitor management and helping those account teams to see that they may be doing a business with, let's say, a Korean company in Malaysia, while at the same time they're trying to chase that Korean company in the United States for selling certain kind of IT products or memory products or what have you. But they realize, no, like all the data points where the company is visiting other teams that we're not involved with. Companies get very, very large. They're only looking at their department. But if they look at all of the departments, very hard to get that. So visitor management, again, security has the data, who is in our buildings. So we try to take that data not only to alert people to say, okay, here's a risk indicator, but also to say, here are different business areas where the data can be used.
When I was at Fox back in the 90s,
Yeah, interesting background.
Fox, Disney, I've done a lot of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love databases, and we use Microsoft Access. And the finance guy comes to me and says, I'm cutting your budget. And I said, why? Because nothing happens around here. So what did I do? I pulled the phone switch, 450,000 phone calls a year.
Wow.
My little department. 20,000 were my guy. But I had to justify the budget, and I said, you know what you could save me on? Is door openings. So I did the analysis you're talking about, and I found out that every time a guard opened up a door, it cost the company $125. And guess what? A policy came out from the big shot that said, you're not getting your door opened by security. If you forget your keys, go home. And that stopped right away. So now I was able to look at crime trends instead of opening doors and being a concierge, right?
Right.
So this is amazing data And how you look at it and how you analyze it and how you crunch it is so important. And frankly, I'm glad to see this is happening, because 5-6 years ago, people were saying, nah, who needs to know that stuff, right? So I'm happy this is
coming. And I think in a way, in a way, some sort of budget restriction creates more innovation, right?
That's
if
right.
everything was working the same way, we wouldn't really go out and look for a new solution, new thing. But like you mentioned, this simple example, so I was talking to a Silicon Valley company who said, how many times our CFO has been late to a meeting, or CIO has been late to a meeting with the board because they forgot their badge or they didn't have the right access on their card. Right. It's a big deal for the security department.
Oh, you don't slow those guys down.
So, but they also looked at how many employees, on average, are losing or forgetting their badge. And they said, it happens two times in a day or what have you. But we came up with a very innovative solution for them. We said, they're going to forget the badge, you can send them home. It's all about employee productivity. How much hours they have wasted, especially if it's a contractor. So, not to make things very easy for them to forgetful, but we're helping them use their phone.
Brilliant.
For the day they have forgotten their badge.
Just a day.
You can only do it, you can't lose it more than 3 times in a month.
Now, why don't we use it all the time?
That's great, right? So that's exactly where the industry is heading, is starting to use phone as a phone factor, right? We forget our badge, never forget our phone.
Never forget the phone, right.
Right. And then as that starts to improve, some sort of employee productivity, that say, not only I can use it on a forgetful day, I can use it every day.
Yeah.
Right? But we're still kind of going through this phase where it's going to take a generation to say, I can use phone for everything, including my token. Well, people still want to see a badge.
Yeah, that's functionality. How would you price it? I think if you're charging $10 for a hit card, I charge you $10 per phone. Same thing.
Something very similar.
And you make more money because you don't have to make the card.
I wish HID would love that $10 figure though.
I'd pay it. You know what? You know why I'd pay it? Because I'm paying it now. Plus, I got to make the badges. I got to put a guy on labor to make the badges. I got to do all that crap.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm going to pay 10 and have no labor. I'm saving money paying you 10 for a phone.
Exactly. Right. And more importantly, today, that phone, the token on the phone can also be used for logical access, just like how card can be used for logical access.
Right.
So we're seeing that already happen. We're seeing more and more that people are going to end up having 2 tokens, one on their phone for both physical and logical access, and one they're going to have a guard or some sort of a card near the guard, just because, we are culturally wanting to see an ID badge.
Yeah, that's true.
To say it belongs to you and all of that.
Yeah. Now you could also, I would see a trend where you might use a phone and the badge for 2-way authentication.
That's
correct. If you want to be really secure, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have both, you can't get in.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those are the kind of things where security is no longer, and this is one of the things we're talking about, the data in terms of using phone, the tools that people already use for doing a lot of other things. Security, rather than being only a security provider, becoming a service provider.
Yeah.
Just like how accounting is just not counting the expense reports, but they make an expense report to get easily and faster to be turned around. Or procurement is becoming more a service-oriented organization. IT, for example, is constantly being asked, not just provide you network and hardware, but service. Security is no different. So security is again changing. I think we see security changing in the next 10 years to be a service-oriented organization, not just a cost center, that actually either help with employee productivity or help with making the customer lives better as they visit these companies, in addition to whatever else they were doing.
Yeah.
That's where they see more value. They get the seat on the table in terms of the management meetings. I was at a customer site, large customer, global manufacturing company out of New York, and they said, I was discussing the budget of my access control rollout with my CEO.
Yeah.
And after about 10 minutes of presentation, he said, I really don't want to be bothered with these details. That's why the system's going fine. I really don't care.
That's right.
Tell me about the visitor management system you're deploying. I said, why is the CEO interested in the visitor management system? Way more, because he's saying that is the first point of contact a person is going to get when they arrive at the headquarters of the company.
Yeah.
They're not going to see the access control. It's running in the back end. They're not going to use their card at the door. But the visitor management system is going to be first interaction this company. And he wanted to make sure that interaction is so energetic.
And seamless.
It's so seamless. Yeah. It's so forward thinking that they want to go back and say, I went to this company's headquarters and the person automatically had my photo of what I look like when they came out to come look for me. The kiosk had just about every piece of information that I related to my visit already. And I was given a very nice welcome card as a part of this. It's almost like a red carpet treatment.
That's so important.
So the CEO, even the visitor management, is much smaller in terms of the budget, more interested in that. than an access control, because it really does not come into day-to-day in contact with their end user, their customer.
And in a normal business, I just interviewed Tycho about access control, right? So most access control is to keep most of the honest people honest, calculated, counted, kept track of, right?
Correct,
A determined intruder doesn't care about your access control system. He'll try to get around it, and he may or may not, right?
Right.
But the first impression of somebody walking in the door to your business, if that guard, that concierge, that greeter is messed up, it's clunky, the process takes too long, it's a reflection on the company. They're going to say, really, you want to handle my data and your guy can't even get his ID card right?
That's exactly right.
Kill your sale, absolutely.
They were saying in this case, they're trying to sell this technology that they're building and manufacturing around the world to some very high-tech companies, and they said, when we're talking about all the high-tech, their welcome should be equally high-tech.
That's right. And there's not a connection usually.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I think these are the kind of things where they don't look at security as just doing security, but security as a way to deliver more services to your customer. I think the other trend, and we're demonstrating some of that over here, is very, very important. That security is everybody's business, kind of like an old adage, right?
Yep.
Security is not just security's business. You can't just secure a 20,000 people organization with 200 man guard, right? That's not, security is a culture. If you're going to secure it, you can't necessarily, you need to augment that with your employee education about security and all of that. So what we're seeing is more and more application that we are developing is keeping that end user in mind. What should they can or cannot do? How do we educate and have the regular employee,
keep engaged,
contractors who are working at the company who think of security while using or requesting things from security? So it's not just the 200 people security department securing them, but it is part of the policy, the education and all of that across all of the company's employee contractor base. And what that does is make security look a lot different than saying these systems are only made for the guard and the security system that we're designing. We're designing a security system that's made for all of the different people who are stakeholders in that. That includes marketing, finance, IT, regular employees. So our application, our users today, QuantumSecure manages about 150 different large organizations use our software, and about 7 million identity use the system every day. That's not 7 million security users.
Right.
Probably that's 6.5 million day in, day out, people who need something from security department, and about 500,000 security users.
And it's not always security. I used to get calls for, can you hang up my poster board? I mean, crazy stuff, right? You're a service organization.
Exactly.
And if you respond and can't do it, you call somebody. You're still doing it by putting them in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, I've been coming here for 25 years, and I used to be worried every year because I didn't see things catching up. And this year is the first year I see things catching up.
Absolutely.
Security companies, the end users tend to be kind of, kicking and screaming, but there's people like yourself and other companies that are like way ahead of the curve. Now the question is it an easy sell? Because the end users sometimes go, do I really need that right now? So it looks like the tech companies are getting a little ahead of the customer now, where it used to be the other way around.
That's true.
You see it that way?
Absolutely. I mean, I've sat in several meetings, including with somebody, a lot of tech companies in Bay Area who said, I just couldn't find a product like this, so I started building it on my own.
Oh yeah, we used to do that.
The number one today competitor we have is people who are building it themselves, just because they couldn't find it out in the market. Or what they found was, the same brand of access control that I put it in the local school district will work for you as well, though you are the most high-tech manufacturing company.
Now, do you write API programs for people, and do you customize software for them, or is yours really plug and play that can be scaled to what they need?
Yeah, so we definitely write a lot of APIs. I would say about 20% of my engineering team, that's all they do is write APIs.
Oh, that's interesting. All right.
They write APIs to different brands of access control, different brands of IT security systems, HR systems, Workday, SAP, PeopleSoft, all of them. Because it's not just about security system, it's all about the rest of what the corporate fabric uses. So in an average company today, they have a different HR system, a different Salesforce type CRM system, they have a different financial system. We want to bring it all together. Now typically, a financial system never needed to connect with a security system.
Yeah, that's true.
But what we have found is companies who have a lot of contractors. Well, how do you know the contracts are still valid? Well, that's where the procurement system comes in. So we integrate with the procurement system to say, if Joe Jones has a welding contract with the company, they can come in any of your part shop, well, they need to have the welding contract continued on. They need to have a purchase order, so all the Joe Jones contractors or their employees can come on site.
Now, back in the day, if I went to a company and said, I want you to write me a graphic user interface, and they go, what do you, oh no, I can't have your system touching my system. That's a no-no, right? Security breach, blah, blah, blah. Is that going away now? Are people cooperating at the API level to integrate this
I think if you bring in the right stakeholders and then also have certified APIs, so for example, a lot of integration we do, whether we're doing it with Tyco like you mentioned, or UTC-Lenel and all of those systems, we are certified. Not only we have an API with them, they test it, they approve it, we go once a year, AMAG, the same thing. The same on the things like SAP and other systems, financial systems, Oracle. They also have certified programs in terms of not just go and start writing a bunch of queries, but very specific APIs like you mentioned. But not only they do that, they also certify that this vendor is qualified in terms of doing that. So that's exactly what I said. 20% of my engineering team is doing just that.
Now,
keeping up with all the different versions that they come up with every year.
So here's what I worry about.
Yeah.
What is the tin can and the wire to fall back on? Because integration's great, but integration's also terrible. Why? Because now if I get in the system, I'm into everything. It's not bifurcated anymore. It's not chopped up into little servers and little silos, it's not separated.
That's right.
And I can get your whole company. I got your SAP, I got your security, I got your access control, I got your cameras, just like in the movies now, right?
That's it.
We're almost in the movies, aren't we? We almost can do that. Yeah. If it's all integrated, you can access it. If you're a hacker, you can cause trouble.
That, yeah. I think one of the things what we have focused a lot on is policies. For example, we know on an average, exactly like the data you're talking about, on average a company makes 300 changes in their HR system on a given day, and that's how the data flows to it. Well, if we see 5,000 changes come today, our system starts figuring out, is this real or is it an anomaly?
Oh, because you're automated, of course.
So I think because this is not the kind of data changes we typically see on a day basis. And we have had customers tell us that, sometimes, especially like universities, they tell us up front, hey, we're going to be making a lot of changes in the next week. Our system starts to figure that out. There's a schedule of semester changes and things like that, so a lot of data will be coming through. So there are ways to make that intelligent. I mean, of course, the movie kind of glamorized the hacker and make sure all the security guys don't know what they're doing, all of that. But I think what we need to look at, not only just integrate and automate, do it based on a policy. So it is based on some rules that the system either learns or the system understands that are governing the specific business process, security process of that company. So example would be, for example, we do a lot of integration for airports. So if you have not taken a background check in the next 2 years, the system will flag itself. So once good is not always good. That means we are integrated all the way with the credentialing system that's good. That makes sure that once good is not always good. If somebody hacks into that system and tries to give us a different data, our system automatically knows how often your background check is supposed to come. So if your background check was not good, and suddenly it turned out to be good without us doing any other processing, the transaction is not going to carry through.
You need to go to LAX. You got to talk to them. So I got a TWIC card, I don't know, a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I had some clients that were airlines, small airlines, and I'm talking to them about this kind of thing, and I say, well,
employee get background check and credential in each of the airports, so that's extra money for United and extra money they're spending each airport. They're carrying 3 badges, based on what airport they're headed to, LAX or Burbank or SNA, right, different ones. So when they met us, one of the problems they wanted to solve was, can we be consistent? So one United employee, because United is that airport's customer.
Right.
It's the one who's paying the lease for the airport space. So what can we do from a customer service perspective, not just security, to make United very happy? At the same time, live up with all of the TSA regulation policy that we have. So one of the things was, can we standardize on the set of credentials across 3 airports?
Well, how do you standardize the TWIC card? Because I did some maritime work, right? I was managing maritime accounts. And one company has a TWIC reader, and the guy across the street literally does not have a reader. And so all they do is say, oh, you got a card, go ahead. Oh. We don't know if that card's active, we don't know if it's good.
That's where the mobile phones come in.
But so you go back to policy, right? Because the policy for the port from the Coast Guard is, well, if you can't afford it, I'm not going to make you buy one. So I can have a deactivated TWIC card and get into a port that's manual.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, so it's great that we're trying to do this kind of stuff. company name one more time.
QuantumSecure.
How do we get hold of you guys? Website?
www.quantumsecure.com and hidglobal.com as well.
Oh, excellent. Your name, sir.
Yeah.
Your name one more time.
Vic Guy.
All right, Vic, thanks
All right.
for coming
Nice
on
talking to
Security
you.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Very good.
I'm back to Security Guy Radio. Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing terrific.
It's been about, 6 months, maybe 8 months? I saw you at ICOS.
6 months.
Yeah, what's happened? Anything exciting in access control and all that stuff?
We have a lot of exciting things going on at
All right.
Sielox right now.
So tell us the name of your company. It's Sielox.
Sielox.
All right. Now, I want to hear the funny version of how the name came to because your husband told me a funny version. Do you have the funny version?
I don't have the funny version.
Oh, you got to get it from him. It's very interesting. The combination of two different possible names from two different companies. Well, I'll have to send you the memo on that one.
Yeah,
It's kind of interesting.
I don't know that
But you
one.
guys have been around a long time.
Yes, we have
Since
been.
the 70s?
79.
Now,
So 35 years.
Have you been operating it the whole time?
No, I've been part of the group since 91. So I'm coming up on 25 years of working with this team.
So what's the primary core of your business? What do you do primarily?
We're an access control manufacturer, and we also are in crisis management and communications.
Now, talk about the manufacturing piece. Ironically, I've met a lot of manufacturers today. Normally you don't, right? You meet the integrator or the guy that designs or something like that. So what is it you manufacture? The locking components or what?
We manufacture the electronics, the controller that controls...
The controllers, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
control the locks, the doors, door switches, request to exit devices.
Now, can your controllers integrate with other systems? Can I use a hit card on your controller, or do I have to use your controller, your card for it?
No, our controller supports any card technology
Oh, good.
that is Wigand.
Okay.
So the bit formats really don't matter, but any reader that puts out a Wigand format will communicate with our controller.
And then you have the school component, which I think is even fascinating.
Right.
And tell us about that.
Well, before I do that,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if you knew this, but our controller is made in New Jersey.
I am unbelievably happy to hear that. I may be the only one I've heard of it's made in the United States.
It is, all of our electronics are made in New Jersey.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
we are truly USA made for all Sielox solutions.
That's fantastic. All right, that's great. So tell me about the school program.
Well, our crisis management product, we designed several years ago based on the red-green lockdown procedures
Right.
that were recommended by FEMA after the Columbine tragedy. We took it from the original concept of 2 colors. We upped it to 5 colors. Schools that had deployed red-green told me I had too many colors. We said, not a problem, take some colors off. Then they
That's a
started
teacher
to
for
add
you.
the colors back in.
Oh,
And now the recent one is I didn't have enough colors. So we've now enhanced the product up to 8. So we now have 8 colors because they wanted to start tracking things like maintenance or homeroom check-in, or that the room was evacuated after a fire drill, or maybe they had an irate parent at parent-teacher night. So they wanted to find other uses for the product besides the original 5 we gave them.
right. That's very interesting. I have a client that I do consulting with. They're a manufacturer, technically, right? But more of a mall. They manufacture product in a mall, all right? That everybody wears, all right? Big campus, and I mentioned your product to them, and they were very interested in that. Not a school, but just a big campus with 3,500 employees, spread out over 5 buildings and maybe 12 acres. And, building 7 that we always make fun of is because that's the problem building with all the collections and things in it. And they have all kinds of drama going on. And it's so far away, nobody knows what's going on over there.
Sure.
So you started in schools, but you find that this application is receptible in corporate. And the reason I'm asking, schools are always a hard sell, right? When my kids were in private school, I had the school contract for guards. I'm the expert. They wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't listen to anything I told them, right? I came in one day and said, how come we're taking a nap and my kids have their shoes off? Well, they're taking a nap. I said, except there's an earthquake. They're going to cut their feet walking across the glass. Oh, we didn't think about that, right? So I don't know why schools are still so resilient to this. It's just bizarre to me. What do you think it is?
I think that they recognize that they have the need for it, but they don't have the budget for it.
I think it's still money.
It's still money.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even
Yeah,
with all
it's
those
still money.
lotto bucks we get and all that other stuff they're spending on schools. So walk us through how the Sielox system works for the schools. And I want to, while you're doing this, let me know if you have people that get your controllers and the Sielox software program in conjunction. Is usually just one or the other?
Well, about 80% of the school deployments so far have been done with just using their existing infrastructure,
Okay.
their desktops,
Yeah, it's
laptops.
less expensive, I suppose, yeah.
Right. So, and they communicate across WAN, LAN, Wi-Fi, and high speed. A few schools have deployed using our Altronix, our controller, where they have introduced wireless or hardwired buttons to signal status of their particular location. But most have used our panel to tie to their existing systems that they already have deployed, where we're triggering the real-time recording of their existing video system, or we're triggering the pull-up of the video on their monitors.
And maybe 10 years ago that didn't happen because you had to have that guy's system to do that.
Correct.
So now the integration part is important, but I've been talking to a lot of people today about integration. I'm for it, but I'm not for it, right? It's great that I can take 5 different companies and integrate everything to some graphic user interface and an API and everything's great and we are going to hold hands and be friends, but the hacker now can get into one system and get access to all those things. What do the individual manufacturers do, or how do they work together to solve that? Can you take your product and build a silo within the network that says, all right, you got into the network, but you need to authenticate, dual authentication maybe, to get into Sielox? Because people are talking about dual authentication, and not everybody's doing it. I'm just curious if something Sielox has thought about.
Well,
I'm sorry, dual authentication, yeah.
We can do dual authentication if you're getting into our system as an operator, but when we're integrating our system with existing solutions that are already deployed, we're typically doing it with output to input linking. So we're doing it through a cable and not through an IP connection.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
So we're sort of isolating it without it being truly, it's more of an interface than it is an integration.
Okay, so is that different than other products? Or are most products hardwired like that?
A lot of them are hardwired. Some of them are written under through an API where there is a soft connection between the two. But our Crisis product we have done so far, they've been hardwired communication connections.
So that helps cut down on some of that hacking stuff.
Exactly. So you're sort of isolating all the products, and they're independent of each other, but they can all work in conjunction with each other.
So walk me through the Sielox program. I'm a school. You're going to come in and pitch this to me. Tell me how this is going to work for me. And I got a school with 500 kids, and I got the greatest computers. They're all Apples. I got a nice internet. Everything's fine. Walk it through and make it seamless for me because I'm a pesky customer and I don't have time. Boil it down to us for the average person who wouldn't understand how this works.
Well, in its simplest form, every teacher would be given a URL. They would browse into the appliance. They would have a login name and password. And
so when they get to their classroom, they're kind of logging into Sielox.
Exactly.
Right?
They could put that in save it as a favorite, save the favorite to the desktop as an icon, and put that in the startup menu. So every morning when they come in and turn the computer on, it automatically comes up for them, and now they're browsed in and part of the system. Minimize it, move it out of the way. We would teach them what each color stands for, and if an incident situation changes in their classroom, they would select the appropriate color, and in less than a second, the principal, superintendent, security resource officer, or designated responder would now be receiving that condition change, and they could respond accordingly. Responders could also change alert levels and choose whether there's a lockdown situation that warrants them locking down the entire school. Maybe there is a shelter situation because there's a weather threat or a chemical spill or a bomb threat or something. They need to go
or barricade in place, lockdown in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and that's connected to every other classroom. So can Mrs. Taylor in room 5 see all the other rooms are green, and room number 10 is red, and I got to stay away from room 10?
The teachers don't get to see their floor plans, so that
all right.
So they're isolated from that. The responders can choose to communicate with the classrooms to let them know and give them an update, gather additional information, or push out additional instructions. But the teachers never see the floor plan, so they don't see where there's the critical threat. So we don't get them into a panic.
Well, that's one side of the argument. I see that. And on the other side, knowledge is power too, right? So if I
Right.
know the guy's to the left, I'm going to go right if I have to leave, right? So
Right,
that's
but
one
the
side.
responders have the ability to push that information out in a chat form, to push it out
Okay.
to those and tell them to evacuate out of one wing maybe and not necessarily another wing.
Now, if I'm the room that goes red, what do I use to go into that mode? You know, if I happen to be sitting at my desk and I got my mouse open and I can push the button, that's one thing. Do we have some mobile app ability? Do we have some, panic button ability that'll set it into these modes?
Any of those types of devices could be tied to the system.
Oh, okay. All right. And then
So
once
they're not limited. If they want to have the ability to have a hardwired button, they could. If they want to wear a pendant, they could wear a pendant. If they want to just use their phone or a tablet or their desktop,
right.
any device is available to be used as a initiating, responding, or administering device.
So as a teacher, if I go red, is the classes on either side of me, those classrooms, are they going to know I'm red right away, or does the administrator now have to jump in and say, okay, I'm going to let you guys know what to do?
The classrooms on either side may not necessarily know that they're red unless the responders decide to communicate with them to let them know that they're in close proximity, or maybe they have a clear path and they should get out.
So if I'm the end user and I wanted you to customize this for me, can we do that too? As far as the software goes, can I change it to permissions and let everybody see this or not everybody see that kind of thing? Screen-wise, levels of permission.
There is some operator permission flexibility in it depending on who can perform what functions or who can see what screens. I currently do not have the ability to give the teacher the ability to see the floor plans, the real-time floor plans. I could give the teacher a map of an evacuation plan if we're going into an evacuation mode, but it's not the dynamic floor plans that the responders are seeing with real-time
Now,
updates.
when people have this installed, are people training with it? Because there are so many good things on the floor today. It's amazing stuff, right? And what happens? You buy it, I buy my GoPro, and it sits in the closet because I can't push the button, I can't figure out how it works, and I get frustrated. What training do you recommend with this to, make sure it's sustainable, keep it working? It doesn't sound like much training, but you got to have some, right?
It doesn't require a lot of training. We've put together training documents for our business partners to go out to the scene in the school and educate the responders, the administrators, how to interface with it, how to engage their local police, fire, or EMS, and how to do training with those, as well as the training designated for the teachers.
So if you can use Windows 7, not 10, because nobody can use 10, but if you can use 7, you can operate this.
Correct.
Pretty much, or an Apple or something like that.
Yep.
Now, can the local police department, have 5 schools on this system, and at their PD and their dispatcher, something goes kaboing and pops red, can they see that, and can they participate in responding in real time by seeing what's going on at the school?
Absolutely. If the school decides to engage the local police department, they could be operators on the system and be getting real-time updates in a second on a lockdown situation happening at a school.
Now, in theory, if I wanted to spend the money, I could have every classroom being an operator, correct?
Every classroom can be an operator.
In theory. Has anybody done that? Any of your clients done that yet?
Yeah, everyone is an operator. Every teacher is an operator.
Oh, no, I misunderstood, because I thought that, if I go red in my classroom, the classroom next door can't see that I'm red necessarily, right?
Well, every teacher is an operator.
That's right. They can manipulate the system to go to a color. So I'm more interested if I wanted to buy a system that I would allow everybody to see everything. My classroom next door, I want them to see what the police department can see. They could choose to do that, I suppose. Just a different module.
I would have to change some of the permissions available to the teachers for them to be able to perform that function.
So the PD guy, he's sitting there looking at the dispatch, it goes off, it's Columbine. If Columbine had this, they're seeing classroom 1 go red. Oops, now classroom 2 is red. I got a situation. I'm giving real-time information to the police as they're responding. Hopefully some teacher in a class that's not affected is typing, sending chat, talking in real time about what's happening, and communicating, and we get there faster. So it's really a first responder program, isn't it? Is that a good way to describe it?
Correct.
Yeah. Anything else going on with the industry that we should know about? Any trends or anything?
We have another exciting new integration in our booth this week. We have integrated to Allegion's NDE Engage Lock. So we're the first manufacturer to have that integration live and functional with their new technology.
Now, boil that down for my nieces and nephews that don't pay attention to anything. What does that mean? Well,
they have a new lock that is lower cost, a lot lower cost than the traditional locks that they have sold in the past and manufactured in the past. And they have a new way to communicate with it, either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth.
Bluetooth, oh, that's interesting.
And so we have written to the Bluetooth communications going through a gateway to our controllers where I can talk to up to 32 of those locks through the gateways on the controller, just like they were online. So we can take actions on the lock or unlock the doors, block access to the readers, get all the admitted or denied transactions from
All through
the door.
Bluetooth?
All through the Bluetooth.
What kind of range do you have on that?
They have a 50-foot range
That's
on
not bad.
their gateway.
Yeah.
And about 5 locks per gateway are currently what they're supporting.
So this reminds me of one of my clients who had no conduit, 100-year-old building, nothing. And they weren't about to poke holes in it because it was a historical building, right? So here's a Bluetooth system that would probably work for something like that. And it functions like it's on a network, but it's a personal area network, but it's not hardwired per se, and it's not Wi-Fi. It's just very local. That's really interesting. Is that kind of a first product?
It's very cost effective. Their suggested list price installed is under $750, which is I think a game changer.
And where does the data get stored? Does it go back up to
It's in the controller.
Locally?
Yep, locally.
You can't take it out to the Bluetooth or download it through the Bluetooth.
No, it's all being pushed out to it.
But you can send commands to it to change
Correct,
them. So that's convenient. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have all your action commands available to you to lock or unlock or.
What's going on in the API business? I had a friend of mine came on the radio show. She came up with a great idea to, instead of making a security app, which she wanted to do because she almost drowned on a frozen ice pond one day and tried to call her husband, didn't know what to do and what button to push. So she said, what if I could push any button on my phone? And it became a security function because I have an API interface on it. I like API. I see more and more people doing it. But the downside is more and more people are doing it. So everybody's connected to everything now, and maybe that's not a good thing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not as literate on the Bluetooth side of the technology. We have interface to it, but we don't do any development on that side.
All right, so that's fine. And that's almost better because it's it makes your product more secure in one way. That's not out there on everybody's network and easy to get to and all that kind of thing, So let's see, what else we talk about. Any success stories you've had recently? Like a school that had some kind of incident and some kind of response they had for it?
Well, we had, up until now, we've had 4 alert levels in the products. All clear, lockdown, shelter, and evac. And we have had a lot of the schools that have deployed the product, put the product into a lockdown state. Not because they had an intruder or active shooter inside, but because there was something going on in the community. So they very quickly got on the PA system and say, we're in lockdown, but we're not in a real lockdown. We're in a soft lock. We're in a lockdown. We're in a lock.
You need another color.
Depending on which state they were in, they had a different term for it. So we did just introduce a new alert level and give them a soft lock, which is there's something going on in the community, like a bank robbery or something. Be
cautious, yeah.
So they didn't have to use lockdown for that purpose. We give them an extra button now. So it has been used. It has been used for some medical situations where the nurse could get to the room in less than a minute now.
Now that's interesting.
Notification.
Any issues with HIPAA? Because HIPAA sticks their claws and everything.
We don't store
because you don't store it. Okay.
We don't store any data on the student or the employee.
Yeah, I had a guy I was talking to about access control, and so his controllers store the data. And he says, well, we don't think it's HIPAA. And I said, if it's a patient who's on your access control board, technically, right?
Right.
If they gave the patient an ID card for the hospital or something like that, it could be. It's all getting very complicated. Mm-hmm. And I wonder where it's all going to just kind of stop working eventually and have to start over because it's too much. But we've made some good inroads into school safety especially.
Right.
And I just wish, and I preach this on my show all the time, I just wish people would wake up and just do it. Just do it faster. I don't need new volleyballs, right? I got to get something I can actually use to make stuff work. Well, Karen, thanks for coming and talking to us.
Thank
it's always a pleasure to come see you guys, and I wish you guys well. And let's talk about some of those schools I know. Let's get your name out there, all right?
Okay, terrific.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
welcome back to Security Guy Radio. What's
Well,
your name,
thanks for
sir?
having me.
Yeah.
I'm Alan Foreman. I'm president of Altronix.
What does Altronix do?
Altronix provides technology solutions for integration of disparate systems, such as all the new technology that's being deployed by the major surveillance and access control manufacturers, and we try to integrate with their software platforms.
So power supplies, I never thought of as being independently manufactured, but they are really. They're a whole different industry.
That's right. Altronix caters to a wide range of applications for power, from powering hardware and cameras, all through the gamut of main microprocessors and controllers. And just up until recently, one of the issues that came to light is that power supplies, being a main component of a security system, requires maintenance and requires monitoring and requires a way for them to be communicate on the network along with the other equipment, creating RMR opportunities for the integrators, and making sure that we reduce downtime and service problems and keeping the systems up and running 24/7.
Now, before this current state of power supplies, what was the old school? Was it you plug it in, and if it burns out, you know it's not working, you send it out and replace it? It really was not interactive with the system it was powering?
That's right. It was always an unknown, actually, for power problem.
So you didn't know if it was really functioning properly or not?
Absolutely.
No,
could have been
it
a
went
short circuit on a loop. It could be caused by something else rather than the power supply itself.
So it's interesting. I didn't specifically come out here to talk about integration. It's come up with everybody, right? Integration is great because now the power supply can talk to the cameras, we can talk to the HR department and all these other things, but then it's also not good for hacking, it's also not good for terrorism, things like that. So how do each manufacturer handle the security side of the integration? I mean, you make the product, you sell it. In the camera industry, for example, they ship the camera and it's an IP address, it's a computer, you get a default password on it, right? And then it's up to the installer to do something about it. How does the power supply in Altronix handle that kind of part?
Well, we've designed into our software security measures, including secure socket layer, and the software is password protected. There are layers of security for different personnel to have access, etc. Our products send out SNMP trap messages or emails, depending on what the integrator is looking for, to report all kinds of diagnostic conditions on the products. We monitor the battery's health, we monitor the outputs, we provide control of the outputs to reset devices. There's a whole slew of benefits along with trouble report logs and event history.
Now, are we creating new jobs and new types of people that manage just the power supply IT part of it, right? Because there can be a system guy that handles a lot of things, but power is network critical, it's mission critical. If we lose power in anything, we got a problem. So when you put the power supply in and we're using your software, is that passed off to, the innovator installs it, but then is it passed off to the owner, or do you guys work with the owner and whoever you're supplying power to make sure that that's still running? Well,
basically it's optional. It's feasible that an end user can actually monitor his own power supplies on his own premises, but that's not what the big picture is.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't read. It's it's kind of reversed in like a camera business, right? So once you pass the camera off, that's
there
on
you
the
go.
owner. So you maintain maintenance.
The big picture is that the installation company can, number one, make sure that the system is running and that the customer is having a higher level of security here. And interestingly enough, the goal here is not to actually log into the power supplies and transmission products and manage them individually, but we are providing API interfaces that are customized for the integrator, and also in the process of integrating with the top manufacturers' VMS platforms, so that when a system is interrogated or if there's an issue, they can actually see the power supplies that are deployed in a single or
one customer and see how
multiple power supplies in a single location or multiple power supplies in a multi-site location.
Oh, okay.
in multiple sites, actually.
Okay.
And without requiring them to go through our individual software, one unit at a time.
Now, what I find in the industry is that manufacturers of other components that go on a network, once they manufacture, install, walk away, it's the owner of the device's issue, right? They take ownership of the security part of it. I'm happy to see that the people that manufacture the power supplies are concerned about the security of the power supply up to participating, continually participating with the client. Because from a terrorism point of view, you know, if they could unplug us, we'd be down and out for a long time.
Inherently, the level of additional service provided by the intelligence and the communication networking of our products within the system creates a stronger bond between the integrator and the end user.
Now, do you own the integrators, or other integrators in the industry are trained on your product?
That's correct.
Okay.
We are out there speaking with the consultants that specify the projects, the key integrators that actually deploy the products, and they are versed on the deployment and the operation of it.
What do you see as the biggest threat to the industry right now with the integration? Not just power supplies, but just in general. What's a big thing people are talking about or concerned about?
Concerns in the industry are how to process the large packets of information that are now available to them. The problem is not how much security you can provide, it's how you can meaningfully process and react to it in real time.
Too much data now. It's getting
Too much data.
Yeah.
Not good enough to have the forensics. The goal of a security system is to prevent a loss in the first place.
Any new products on the market you want to talk about?
Well, actually, Altronix has a slew of new products that we believe are going to be advantageous for deployment, providing, as you know, the industry is going to IP. Altronix provides products that extend the range of IP, which are very important benefits, where you have devices that are beyond the typical 100-meter limitations. Again, a slew of products that address the repurposing and reuse of upgrading analog systems without replacing the coaxial cable.
Well, now, how do we do that? That's interesting. I've heard a couple other people talk about that.
Right. We have what we call data converters that actually permit IP over existing copper coax with high quality and longer distances than effectively attainable with Ethernet cable.
I think when I was at IC West, somebody told me that 2014 was the year that IP had still not outsold, you know, old school analog. Analog was still outselling IP. I think maybe in 2015 they say it's changing. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's still analog. And so you throw it away, the budgets are too tight.
No question about it.
Yeah, so you can convert it and it can work. Sure. What was the name of that software that I saw on the floor out there? What was that called?
Link.
Link, yeah, Link.
Right. We have right now an offering of Link-enabled products. We have power supplies and other transmission devices, power and transmission devices that are capable of operating with the Link technology. And we are able to monitor a host of diagnostic functions.
Now, with Link, it sounds like a verb, right? So you're able to link all these different power supplies. You can link analog, you can link digital, you can link system down the street. What's the range on the linkage? Is it just whatever the network can bear?
Well, Link is the connectivity between, it has nothing to do with distance. It has to do with the ability to locally or remotely access myriad devices throughout a facility or throughout multiple facilities.
And how high would a power supply be that's monitored and how low? I mean, are we going to monitor?
Thresholds are settable, selectable, so the particular application or installation can be tailored to actually determine what functions or what alerts would be desirable for the system?
I like the fact that the actual power supply itself can send you out an email, can send you out an alert, instead of the guy that's monitoring it, who hopefully he's not watching TV, he's paying attention, but the device itself can actually send you notifications that it's having an issue. That's amazing.
It allows for a pretty rapid determination as to what the problem might be, if there's any. And it could, in fact, rule out the fact that the power supply is not the problematic issue, and that there's intermittent AC power on the premises or some other problem that might exist.
I remember at the studio, the main power flipped, nobody knew it, then it went to UPS, and they didn't pay attention to the UPS either. It wasn't smart back then. And the guy was supposed to be looking at the monitor and he was doing something else, and the X-Files went off the air for 15 minutes.
In addition to reporting real-time issues, our unit also is capable of sending out a reminder that after a certain period of time, the installer knows, or the end user knows, that it's time to routinely change battery backup.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a great feature.
Yeah. No, I never knew so much about power. It's amazing. And you still have the most amazing looking booth of all the booths out here.
Well, thanks so much,
Does it ever win a
Chuck.
prize? It should. It's really cool looking.
Well, there's more revolutionary technology and enhancements to come.
Great. Thanks for stopping by, Alan, from Altronix.
Appreciate your time.
Website again, altronix.com, right?
Altronix.com, it
Excellent.
is.
Thanks for coming on Security Guy Radio. All right, it's a wrap.